Hello and welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the Historical Humans podcast. Welcome back, and today we are doing something just a little bit different. Our topic for today is the Darien Scheme, Scotland's failed attempt in Panama Bay, and its failure is the single most devastating thing to happen to Scottish independence and the relationship with England. In order to understand why Scotland attempted the Darien Scheme, we must first understand the Scotland of the 17th century. My name's Justin Woods, and today I'm joined by my wonderful co-hosts Gwendolyn Allen and Colum Coleman. And Colum, you wanna jump us in?
Sure. The Darien Scheme was the Scottish endeavor to establish a colony, any colony really, in the New World. They had chosen a region that they named the Darien region, for lack of a better name. Very, very original. It's the Darien River and the Darien region of Panama. That was their title.
All right, what should we name it? Well, the river's right here. Oh, okay, that's fine. Let's just keep it.
Hey, there's a lot of things.
No, they named the river.
Oh, they named the river.
They named the river Darien. Then they named the land around it Darien. Then they named the colony they were going to put there Darien. Then they decided to call the endeavor the Darien. It was called the Endeavor Darien.
They had one good name, and they were going to use the fuck out of it.
Yeah, the colonists get there. They do not use the name Darien for anything once they get there.
Nah.
This is purely an upper management idea.
I was just about to ask, is it the corporate life of all right, I came up with this brilliant name. We're gonna use that on every document, everything.
Yeah, it is entirely the early concept of corporate branding without any of the marketing skills of the modern world.
Well, you could say they were trying to do some guerrilla marketing.
No.
So, in order to understand why Scotland goes all in on the Darien Scheme and why they're really motivated to try and force a colony to manifest in the Americas, I almost said New World there, but that's not really accurate anymore. And it's been around for 4 centuries now. It's kind of old.
Yeah.
3 centuries, but that's splitting
Or-
hairs.
Well,
If you're in the
more
17th century,
well, I was thinking of today. What math are you doing?
I thought you were referring.
How are you doing math?
I thought you were referring back to when the colony took place. That it wasn't considered the New World by that point because
No, it was still called the New World. I was just almost did a inaccurate term for the modern day. I'm sorry.
Okay, I didn't realize you were talking modern day. I'm still far back in
How
history.
old? How old is Columbus to you?
Well, Columbus sailed the ocean blue in 1492.
I cannot believe you remember that line.
It still haunts my dreams.
All right. So anyway, Scotland of the 17th century, as this endeavor, the Darien Scheme, takes place at the end of the 17th century. Basically, all the horrible things that happened in the 17th century to Scotland kind of make it happen.
Yeah.
Scotland at this time is in a severe economic crisis. They desperately need a new source of revenue or prosperity or something, anything to make their economy go. People are starving. There are more homeless than there are people who are employed.
And how did their neighbors, the British, make all of their money? How did England get really, really filthy rich?
Well, they got there with colonies.
Oh!
Yeah.
Colonies, which, by the way, the English had made it illegal for Scotland to trade with.
Yeah, I mean, talk about a slap in the face.
Yeah. So the first big thing to understand about Scotland at this time is that Scotland and England are separate countries ruled by the same person. They are at the time of the Darien Scheme. They are ruled by a man known as William III, who is a little bit famous for his thin-skinned antics regarding the slaughter of the MacDonald clan, because due to poor roads and delays, the leader of that clan was a few days late delivering his oath of fealty, and that means you can legally murder everyone who was ever related to him.
Oh man.
I mean, that does sound like a very English thing to do.
I
I should say like English monarch thing to do, not like all of the English is like that. But I feel like the kings of England are very sensitive.
But just
no. Cockney London, you're late to tea time. Your whole family gets murked by a street gang.
But like, also think about that. You hit traffic on your way in. There's road construction, quote unquote, because the roads are in such poor condition. And then you show up and the guy's just like, yeah, I'm just gonna kill your family. Like, you're late. I would be pissed.
Bad weather. It was a sign from God that I should kill you. Therefore,
fun fact about this, because I ended up reading up a bunch on this, and it wasn't relevant at all to what we were doing. He accepted the oath. The leader of McDonald's went back home. Then about a month later, they sent the Campbells in to go stay with them as guests, and then murder them all in their sleep.
Listen, that's wrong. You don't send people to be guests to then murder the host. That's just rude.
In the McDonald's former territories, there are now signs on there's to this day signs on every inn saying no Campbells allowed.
Oh my gosh, that soup company must not do well in Scotland.
What if you're like an American Campbell and you try to register to stay at the hotel and you just get rejected?
You can't. Old Ronald McDonald. This is McDonald territory. Ronald McDonald versus Campbell's Chicken Noodle. Here we go.
Across the streets where the Burger King is, because it's McDonald's territory.
Burger King. All right, so anyway, so in 1603, they share a leader. And over the next century, that leader becomes increasingly Anglophile. They just go all in on backing England and England's interests and completely neglect the Scottish, except for when it comes time to murder them.
Or tax them.
Oh, that is true. Yep. Because that's a good point. Because that brings us to the second problem for Scotland. England waged 15 separate groups of wars over the course of the 17th century. Scotland had to pay for all of them because it's your king. Your king is at war.
Oh.
Had to pay for every war of with a foreign power and with England itself, because England also goes through the civil wars at this time.
You know what? This seems to be a theme with England. They're just like, you know what? People that aren't us, but that we rule over, we're just going to settle all of our debts on that and go start these wars and go do these things. And it's just like, I wonder why they're so angry with us. It's almost like we treat them so shit, and then take all their money. Who would have thought this was a terrible ruling practice?
Hans, could we be the baddies? Are we the baddies?
Yep. Well. Just yes, you are, because that little war, the English Civil War, is one of the more relevant ones to why Scotland is in such a poor state by the end of the 17th century. See, that lovely little war had the same death toll to Scotland as World War I in terms of percentile of the population. Additionally, most of that war was fought in Scotland. So guess whose homes are burning, whose cities are sacked, whose people are raped.
I can answer this one. That's actually the reason my family came to America. We were... My family held some land in Scotland, and then after the English Civil War, we went off to the New World. We went off to America and have toiled ever since.
Yeah. But you didn't go to the Darien colony, and that was probably a good choice.
Maybe we could have vast amounts of wealth or nothing at all.
Yeah, Justin Woods coming to America and featuring Eddie Murphy.
Eddie Murphy as Justin Woods.
At that point, it's just the same movie.
Exactly, that's the point. It's a parody.
Yeah. Yeah. Since you were so tied to the English Civil War, you want to bring us in on the second war that really devastated Scotland during this period?
Yes, that was the 9 Years' War, which lasted from 1689 to 1697. And it was also called the War of the Grand Alliance and the War of the League of Augsburg. And it included extensive fighting between William III and James II, and William had deposed James in 1688, and the fighting was known as a Jacobite War. Jacobite.
Yeah, the fighting in Scotland in particular was called the Jacobite War. There, it was called like the 9 Years' War everywhere else.
And England led an alliance to block the expansion of the French under King Louis XIV. And the wider conflict involved nations of Europe jockeying for position in the anticipated War of Spanish Succession, which later occurred in 1701 to 1714. And Charles II of Spain was unable to produce an heir, and a succession crisis would leave the Habsburgs, which was Austria, England, etc., and Bourbon French dynasties with equal claims. So there was a lot of vying for that throne, a lot of anticipatory actions took place.
Yeah. Of all the stupid reasons to massacre people, anticipating that someone is not going to have a child has to be one of them. You've literally predicted that a man will not have children. Therefore, we must all kill each other in preparation for the time when we must kill each other over who gets to take his chair.
Now,
I don't know why, but I immediately thought of grandmas when it's like, are you going to have kids yet? Am I going to be a grandma? What's going on? Honey, why aren't you married yet? Why aren't you having kids? Look at you. You're 25. You're basically decrepit. But doing that with the king and then killing people over it because we need to have an heir to the family.
In this case, that grandma is basically Elizabeth II of England. Only she's now somehow genocidal maniac instead of being the sweet old lady that she is.
You mean she wasn't already? Let's be real. The money
She's in charge of England. It kind of comes with the territory.
Yeah, and that's where half her money's
the literal territory.
It's literally the territory.
So now, why
she's
didn't
been willing to oversee the demise of the British Empire? So
why didn't Charles have children though? Was he like that? Was he? Because I know there's a lot of inbreeding issues that caused reproductive issues. I know that there's questionable sexuality things with a lot of leaders. Is there a definitive reason as to why?
It was biological. I don't remember the exact cause, but it was a biological. He was physically disabled.
Oh.
And that yeah.
I just imagine being
he was physically disabled to the point that his ability to actually eat food was compromised.
Oh wow.
He had to be assisted in eating.
Like Baby Bird?
That poor man.
I was just thinking, like,
I'm not getting that deep into the details on this. You want that? You can look.
You don't have to. I'm just, that's intense.
His nickname was the Bewitched. Okay, he was called El Hechizado. I don't speak a word of Spanish.
Interesting.
He was the Bewitched.
I mean, I can get that if he was like quadriplegic or something.
Yeah, okay, that makes a lot of sense and would make sense as to why a lot of greedy nations would be nipping at the bud to try and stake a claim.
Yeah, he was. It seems he was inbred, and that made him deformed and infertile. Seems to be the general consensus of the world. And I brought up his pictures on my screen. I'm not going to share them with you because, oh God, does he look it?
Oh no.
His jaw, he's got a double chin, and if his face is where I am, his chin is over here.
Ooh. Ouch.
So imagine trying to do anything with like your jaw slanted down and out about 20 degrees.
Yeah,
is.
Yeah, and with like not modern surgery to be able to like try and fix that, that's insane.
That
Oh.
no existence of painkillers.
Okay, I've
Yeah.
seen him before. He's like the photo child of the Hapsburg look.
Yeah. Yeah, and
I'm not gonna look up pictures. I want to be
anyway,
able to eat later.
yeah. Anyway,
It's not that
this
bad.
this war in particular, this war in particular was the war closest to the Darien Scheme. It's basically the straw that broke the camel's back for Scotland, as it is the 15th consecutive set of wars that Scotland has to fight, die, and pay for on England's behalf, because England is worried about losing out on claims to Spain via their collected family dynasty that rules basically all of Central, Northern, and Western Europe, except France.
It's also just
And
kind of
they-
interesting too that this is the first of what 2 or 3 times that England has done so.
Yeah.
Because Victoria's bloodline proliferated through Europe later on.
Well, to be fair, the Habsburg Dynasty originated in Austria and the Holy Roman Empire, now Germany. So they were a Central Germanic dynasty that then spread into England and the rest of Europe. Victoria's dynasty spread from England outward, as opposed to from the Central Dynasty.
So it went
from
from Germany
Central
up to England, and then England
it went
Okay.
from the Austrians, I believe, first. Then they became that. Then they took over the Holy Roman Empire. Then they got ties with England, Spain, various parts of the Low Countries. I think had Habsburgs at one point or another. I could be mistaken on that. If you're from the Low Countries, correct me. Also, if you don't know what the Low Countries are, comment Low Countries down below. We like comments on these things.
Shit, I'm gonna have to comment on our own video just to, because I'm like Low Countries. What are you talking
Netherlands.
The Netherlands are the Low
Listen, I
Countries.
specialize in Asia, okay?
But, the Flanders.
So what you're saying is the family proliferated like the Medici.
Sure. Only a hell of a lot more successfully.
Yeah. Although 3 popes and a queen, you're doing all right.
Yeah, try like 4 separate multi-generational dynasties across 3 world powers.
Okay, maybe not as good, but
Yeah.
you know.
Anyway,
Besides
so
that, Scotland was getting screwed over.
so this war devastated Scotland. This war saw Scotland really be left economically destitute by the end of it, and they could not replenish their wealth because thanks to some lovely policies by the King of England and Scotland, mostly England at this point, if you're being honest with yourself, the Navigation Act of 1660 declared it illegal for colonies of England or the nation of England to trade with Scotland under any circumstances.
This really is starting to feel like an abusive relationship of like you're starting to take, but no, you can't. I'm not going to give you anything. I'm just going to keep taking.
Yeah.
Have y'all heard Hamilton? England is always the abuser of the relationship.
The exact details of this act stated that no trade shall be conducted with England or her colonies unless it is on an English-owned ship made in England or one of her colonies, manned by a crew that is at least 75% native English.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you cannot profit from trading with England unless you are from England herself.
That's why
or
they
you just
stole
break every
everything.
law in the book and smuggle.
Yeah.
Which carried kind of the death sentence at this point in time.
Which I also think it should be key to know. I know we touched upon the indie company, the
East and West India companies.
Yes, because those companies were, 1, monopolies, and 2, they controlled the bulk of trade during this time period. some estimates say like 60 or 75% of all trade went through their hands at some point. Like the sun never set on the British Empire, and their ships never docked for long.
And it never set on the British Empire because the sun was reflected by the hoard of absolute tons of gold on all those indie company ships.
The way in which you pictured that, I just imagine the queen is a dragon just on a pile of gold.
Gosh. Well, I mean, her son did give a speech about the minimum wage from atop a golden chair, so
yeah,
that's happened.
I wonder where that gold was sourced from.
Yeah, but back to the 17th century, we have one more thing that really kills Scotland.
Yeah, and it is famine. They suffered through the 7 ill years, which was one of the last major famines in Scotland. It obviously lasted 7 years, and it had a casualty count between 5 to 15% of the Scottish population that had already been dragged down from all these wars and things. And it occurred in the 1690s due to a climate shift. So it was the coldest decade in Scotland in 750 years. Yeah. So it was not at all the best for growing crops and then for also survival as well.
Scotland already is a miserable place, even as it currently stands, where it's always rainy, dreary, and cold. If it's even colder, a 750-year cold, that's miserable.
Yeah, but yeah.
Well, the last 750 years, it didn't last 750.
No, but like the coldest decade within that time frame.
Yeah, it was the cold. Yeah, it was basically the cold. Like there are tree rings indicating growth patterns, and the way the growth patterns are measured, this was the coldest decade of the second millennia AD.
Yeah.
And for the archaeologists playing at home, the name for that is dendrochronology, where you can actually tell dates based off of tree rings.
Now, before we go too far in the devastation here, I'd like to point out two good things. Number one, this was the last major famine of its kind to occur in Scotland. So the Scottish have not been starved to death by these means since. And this is one of the few famines in British territory that the British did not willfully or intentionally create.
That seems even more.
It's so sad that has to be said.
I think that's like the most rare feat of them all, like accidental, unintentional.
Yep. Yeah. That the English did not actively force to happen.
Surprise Pikachu face.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. England looking at the sky. Beat me at my own game, will you? We'll see who can commit genocide better, Mother Nature.
Just like hold my beer.
Ireland has entered the chat.
What we're gonna do to them when they get on a boat.
Yeah. Oh gosh.
Well, speaking of boats, the Company of Scotland trading to Africa and the Indies.
Yep, wonderfully succinct name for a trading company. Really rolls off the tongue. You fit in little logos, all sorts of stuff like that.
I just imagine that a very practical person. A very practical person was naming it like, should we name it the Scottish Indies Company? No, because we also travel to Africa.
Fun fact. This company engaged with neither the East Indies, the West Indies, or Africa. They engaged with Central America, which is
they had ambitions, Colum. They had ambitions.
Panama is not a part of the Caribbean, so it is technically not a part of the West Indies.
Just listen, you know what?
We're going to learn later on that they didn't have the most accurate information of where they were going and what they were doing. So maybe they thought
or
that that's where they were going.
The paperwork was too much.
Pulled a Columbus a little bit.
It's just too much effort to change the paperwork and to rename the company. We might as well just roll with it.
I mean, They didn't last that long, so.
So what did this company do? Who made it, and what did they do?
Well, it was founded in 1693 by William Paterson in Edinburgh. and its original investors were English and Scottish. And the risk that was at play was 50% Scottish and then 50% split between English and Dutch.
Because you really can't seem to do much without the Dutch being involved at this point. They still have a pretty strong mercantile empire going for them.
And then everything changed when the English nation attacked.
Oh my gosh.
Well, actually, everything changed when the East India Company attacked.
I was about to say, yeah, because they pressured English and specifically England's parliament to drop out because they wanted to keep their monopoly. And they were like, "Cool, the fuck, these people? No." So they used their wealth from having a monopoly to influence the English Parliament and forced English and Dutch investors to abandon the scheme last minute, mind you.
This is one of the earliest instances of a company lobbying for its own interests and basically buying the government.
Foreshadowing for the global future. What?
Yeah. But it did spark something kind of interesting where the Scottish, being the intuitive bastards that they are, they're like, okay, well, if the English aren't going to help us out and we don't have their money, we're just let's crowdfund. Let's ask regular everyday citizens to contribute. And surprisingly, they did. And they got a new investment of £500,000.
Yep. It's one of the Darien Scheme is one of the earliest instances of a crowdfunded idea. It is probably the earliest instance. And it's such a pity that it goes horribly wrong.
So do we start a new GoFundMe and try and restart it?
No, because colonialism is bad.
If only there was ethical colonialism.
Yeah. Not to mention that not only were people willing to volunteer their money, things in Scotland were so bad, people were willing to volunteer to get on the ship and go to this colony without knowing where it was. No one on the ship except the captain knew where they were sailing until after the ships had left port.
Listen, you're in an economically isolated country. You're dealing with a famine. You've survived a famine.
Actually, the famine is still going on at this point.
Never mind. You're still going through it. You're
until 99.
The famine.
The famine ends in 99.
Plus, with how cold it was, it's like any place would be better.
Yep. You're like, thank goodness for the tropics. But like, your family has probably died, been murdered. You're going through hell. You might as well take a risk. You're probably going to die anyways. And then, some of them did on the ship.
Wait, you mean that people who are in economically disadvantaged positions, whose health and safety is on the line, they're willing to change their place of residence for a better life?
I know, it's so weird. It's like Squid Game. Like, we thought they were the original, what's the word? Think tank for it.
That just blows me away. I don't get why anyone would want to leave.
Anyway, what was there? One of the reasons why this Darien Scheme was such a big threat to the East India Company and why it was such a big idea is because William Paterson, the man who started it, did not want a repeat of what the English had done with their Navigation Act. So the colony of Darien was meant to be a free port where any ship from any nation could buy or sell goods. Additionally, they chose Panama because the Scottish believed that the short length of the isthmus, they could, in theory, carry everything over to the other side of the isthmus and cut out going around the Horn.
Interesting. So it was almost like a preliminary Panama Canal.
It is one of the first attempts to create a Panama Canal, only they were going to do it without shovels. They were just going to carry everything through the jungle.
That is a very Scottish way around it, 100%. It's
like, we've got hills. Fuck it. Picks up garbage and starts walking. Follow the bagpipes, you'll be fine.
Couple.
The bagpipes.
Tell me that's not how they mark trails.
I mean, I don't know, but that does sound
Never been to
totally off.
Scotland. I can't prove that I'm wrong.
I
can't
love
prove that you're
thinking
wrong.
about that, because then a few hundred years later, a Frenchman was walking by, like, what if we just dug through this? And the ghost of the Scotsman passed her, like, just fucking carry it. But
Yeah.
William Paterson, what's he kind of known for?
Oh yeah. Just to show you what a major backstab English Parliament is with backing out of this deal, William Paterson is the man who made the Bank of England. So all those rich people have money and money security because of him, and they leave him hanging.
Oh.
That is what we call a bitch move.
Because guess whose money the Bank of England handles? The King of England, the government of England, including Parliament, the East India trading companies. We have our knives and bat count out here. Where are we at? We're at like 3 already, and the ships ain't even left port.
Exactly. Oh my gosh. Yeah.
It is just the beginning of a bad time for them. Oh.
But I mean, the whole basis for trying to do this was the fact that Scotland was so economically isolated, and that they held the joint crown with England, so they didn't quite have the same representation that they should have. And then also, the fact that they were actively ignored, and then the English Navigation Acts were like, maybe you have to go through England for everything.
Oh yeah, and one other thing, all of those English wars of with foreign powers and wars of attrition and all the rest of that good stuff that they were doing.
Northern aggression.
Yeah, no, shut up. That's not true. You tanksy bastard. Anyway, it cost Scotland its only other colony that it had aside from the attempt at Darien. It cost Scotland Nova Scotia.
Yeah.
Oh no.
It just straight up took that from them. Because oh wait, you have a point at which you can trade for like furs and whale blubber and a few marginally not profit sucking industries. Better yank that from you. It's too good for you. It makes money.
It'd be a
I
shame
know.
if
It's like
something
a
were to
perfect
happen.
place.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. And then they got, dragged into English wars, lost their only colony.
There's a reason the Welsh's only industry is sheep. The English don't let them have nothing else.
Well, I mean, when you bed down with your business.
Change my mind. Shut up, you.
I'll agree with you there.
But then on July 12th, 1698, the ships leave Leith Harbor with 1,200 settlers bound for Panama.
Yeah, it actually gets off. It actually gets off.
And the ships were called the Caledonia, which... Do you want to go over the history of some of these?
Yeah, sure. We'll go over the names. So the 5 ships were called Caledonia, St. Andrew, Unicorn, Dolphin, and Endeavor. By the way, fun fact, the Endeavor is, by modern standards of writing, misspelled.
Endeavor.
Yeah, as it includes a U in what should be VOR is now VOUR in their spelling.
Wait, I thought in English spelling it's still correct, just not American spelling.
Perhaps. I only have one dictionary.
Okay, I was about to say that's a pretty common spelling for English spelling. So if you go by a United Kingdom's keyboard and spell check, I'm pretty sure that's spelled correctly.
It is.
I've got a Merriam-Webster. I got a Merriam-Webster over here, but I do love that it's just not at all.
But you got to use the
how we
Oxford
would spell it.
Dictionary. Yeah.
Screw Oxford.
According to British English, endeavor is spelled correctly, unfortunately.
Yeah, please.
Why unfortunately?
Please turn that off. Please turn that off. It's screwing with the other words.
Oh, shit. I don't know what I just did.
You turned on the English dictionary. Turn it back to American. Thank you.
Did that work?
Yes.
Okay.
Stop touching things on the software side of this. Stop touching things.
I just wanted to double check.
All right.
I know. I bet I'd be right.
All right. So 1698, this Darien scheme, very patriotic scheme, and that is reflected in the names of several of the ships. Yes. The unicorn is the national animal and symbol for Scotland.
To this day.
To this day.
Best national animal, only competes with the Welsh.
Yeah. It is, and the because of all the lovely English sentiment going on, the unicorn was chosen as Scotland's national animal because it was considered the natural predator of the lion. Yeah. It was the lion's natural rival for territory. And English national animal is the lion.
So you have the dragon of Wales and the unicorn of Scotland. That is brilliant.
Yep. The two of the other ships, the Caledonia, is the Latin term for Scotland. It was called Caledonia in Roman times, and that carried over with the Catholic Church basically having its grip on England for a very, very long time, until the English decided they liked the idea of divorce and wife murder more than they liked the idea of church. So
there's a musical about that.
Yep.
Yeah, King Henry VIII was an interesting fellow.
Yep. And then finally, the third ship on this list here, the St. Andrew. That is actually the name of the patron saint of Scotland. The same way St. Patrick would be the patron saint of Ireland, or St. Peter, the patron saint of Rome. And St. Andrew is so important to Scotland that it's the St. Andrew's cross that composes the Scottish flag. Additionally, when they get to the New World, they name their fortress after him, as it is Fort St. Andrew. So they really, this man is 1-to-1 with the Scottish identity at this point in time.
God, it's almost like that man was a saint.
Yeah.
So on October 30th, 1698, the settlers arrive at the colony.
Yeah, fun fact, every time Gwen sees the word settlers, she reads invaders.
Listen, okay? I am dyslexic, and it's hard to read sometimes.
But
listen, I'm going to go to HR about this. I don't know who HR is, but I'm going to go to them.
Well, in this instance, I think I would be HR, considering I'm the third party.
Well, I am screwed if that is the case.
No. I will let you guys plead your case. We will film it, record it.
There's no freaking way you're HR on top of being PR.
Well, no.
Yeah,
it's HR just because it rotates between the disagreements. So, like, if Gwendolyn and I had a disagreement, then Colum, you would be the HR in that situation.
Listen, thank goodness. I literally can't think of a time when you would be HR, given how much problems you cause off screen.
I cause no problems.
See, and that's one of the problems, you being in denial. But regardless, anyway, when they get to
arrive at Darien, the wonderful land of Panama, filled with mosquitoes, sickness, and the colonists already trying to kill each other before they get off the boat.
I was about to say, there have already been struggles before they get here. Their their rations have rotted. So the rations that they have for when they arrive, as they set up for crops, rotted through. They don't have food. Tensions are already high. People are already getting sick. They already have dead to bury. It's not going well.
Yeah.
And then they get to Darien, and you've got mosquitoes. So now you've got diseases and malaria and all those fun things. And you arrive to a pretty hostile environment for the people and the climate itself, because Scottish people, not really prepared for the tropical climate with their heavy wool and trying to grow corn that's not really made to grow here, or at least as the corn that they have.
Do you think they were upset that they didn't pack the right clothing? Like, they pull up on the shore and it's really tropical, it's warm, it's hot, and they're like, I didn't pack my kilt.
I'm sure they packed a kilt. I'm sure that's the one thing they were like, thank goodness I have this skirt and, the breeze is really coming in, because other than that, we're screwed.
All these hardships were a bit unexpected by was essentially very hopeful, very excited people who got on this ship in the beginning. And since people were volunteering by the thousands, the ships were kind of just taking in everybody they could as colonists without really screening them. So by the time they get to Darien, there are major disputes among the Scots on these ships as to who should be in charge, who's at fault for what, who has the right to tell who to do what, because the Scottish are really known for getting along with each other.
And just to make things a little bit more spicy, so to speak, is usually on long voyages like this, not everyone quite makes it to the finish line. And with that kind of fatal outlook, one of their first tasks when they arrived was to bury the dead. And
that's generally one of the first tasks when you get off of the ship from a voyage to a colony, because people don't make it.
Let's be honest. When you make landfall on one of these transatlantic voyages, whether you bury the dead or eat them says a lot about where you are at this point.
In the stage of your journey.
Because you're going to be doing one of those things, no matter how well things have gone, when you're spending 3 months in a wooden tub with rats.
Yeah.
I'm also just kind of surprised that they didn't just chuck them off.
Well, one of the fun facts about living with rats is that it is a tradition not only in Navy ships, but in ships in general, like merchant ships and pirate ships and stuff, that people would have a ship cat to chase the rats. There are a lot of cute pictures you can find online of ship cats that get dressed up. The World War II Navy cats are the cutest things to look at, just as an aside. But yeah, was not a fun time. On those ships, and the diseases, and also you're not in the best conditions. You're not in the most cleanliness of conditions. It took a while for people to realize, and Navy people to realize that, hey, if I don't want to have an infected wound, I should probably put on clean clothes before I go to battle on this boat, because there's the better chance for me to live.
It took the Navy a long time to realize bathing was a thing.
That is also true.
So yeah, it's a lot of hardship here, and these hardships, they did not discriminate based on any sort of wealth or status that these people may have had back in Scotland, as among that first wave of the dead is Paterson's wife. So you are the wife of the man who created this company. He's founded this expedition. He is responsible for basically this entire attempt. And you're still one of the first people to die.
At least there's a new eligible bachelor in the colony.
That's not how we should look at it.
No.
Yeah, no, I know that's horrible, and that's gotta really be awful for Paterson, who had so many hopes and such. If you're bringing your wife with you, you're expecting to spend a long amount of time here. You're not like the original settlers who came to the New World for 6 months and then went back home.
Yeah. So
but those were also different circumstances of the type of colonies that were being set up.
Yeah. Yeah, and so once they've arrived and dead or buried, the Scots get around to renaming everything from Darien. The river retains the name Darien River, but it's no long. But the land itself becomes New Caledonia, and they found a city called New Edinburgh and a fort called St. Andrew with a bunch of warehouses that will never store anything for their entire existence.
Well, thankfully, these people were creative enough to come up with different names. Unlike the high management of the company that was like Darien this, Darien that.
I think that's kind of bold praise, though, considering that it's New Caledonia, New Edinburgh. Like, it's
Listen,
not...
that was the trend of the time. There's a reason why in America we have New England, New Mexico, New York, New
Hampshire,
New Jersey, New Hampshire.
Yeah.
New London, Connecticut.
Yeah, there's a lot of N beginnings things just because people put new in front of them. We're not going to hark on them for that.
I'm just saying to claim it's unique is a little, or not like.
Well, it's more creative than Welcome to Fort Darien, next to Darien Town, along the Darien River in the land of Darien, which is where they were at this point.
It's unique to the other things, not unique in the idea, but you're not, because. How turned around are you going to get in that place where everything's near the same? Oh, yeah, I was heading towards, Darien. Oh, well, no, you got to head towards Darien. Well, yeah, I was heading towards it. Oh, the other Darien. No, the other Darien.
My name is Daryl. This is my brother, Daryl. This is my other brother, Daryl.
Yeah.
And this is our cousin, Darien.
But anyways, so they start naming new things. And they don't account for a lot of things that happen in this new world.
Yeah, they don't account for the environment at all, with their clothing, with their trade goods, with their crops. They were not given an understanding that they would be going from a place that is cold and wet to a place that is hot and humid and filled with bugs.
Yes.
And that kind of leads into the whole issues of food storages, because they did attempt to grow corn in this tropical environment and didn't succeed very well. And one of the most important things when you're trying to establish is food production. And that's one of the things that allows settlements to grow is agriculture, which, shameless plug, this podcast goes out on Monday. On Wednesday, we will have a HH Explains talking about the importance of agriculture.
Yeah. And one of the big things with this colony is that one of the things that they had anticipated that was not true was that they weren't going to have to do much agriculture to begin with. They thought that they were going to be able to trade for food, so that agriculture wasn't going to be as big of a thing that they really needed to establish early on. But they weren't able to do that because they had heavy wools. I believe they had wool combs and things like that. That's not something that the natives around them needed. It's not something that the Spanish needed, nor did they want to trade with them. So they didn't really have any valuables to get food. Yep. Later on, we find out that some people took a little bit of pity on them. But they were kind of very out of luck in the food department with their rations already rotting, and the corn in the environment. So it was a nat one on a lot of things in this colony.
Yeah. And you did mention it right there, the Spanish.
Yes.
By the 1494 Treaty of Tordesillas, technically the Spanish had rights to basically the entirety of the New World except Greenland and Brazil. That includes Panama. Now, the Spanish had nothing here. They built nothing. They had just wrote on a map that it belonged to them.
Yeah.
That did not stop them from taking great and violent offense to Scotsmen appearing on the landscape.
We're not happy whatsoever. And express that through lead.
Yeah.
Or figurative lead. I don't know if they check.
So yeah, the Spanish, they didn't take kindly to their new
iron
neighbors.
muskets at this point.
Yeah. So
musket balls. Iron musket balls.
The hostilities expanded.
Since they pissed off the Spanish, London was not exactly happy about that, because the king was also trying to kind of repair his relationship with Spain. Oh, you can go into a column if I'm misrepresenting.
Yeah, no, that's all right. It's it wasn't necessarily a desire to be friendly with the Spanish so much as it was an acknowledgement that the great powers of Europe at this time are France on continental Europe and Spain with its massive New World colony. So
Okay.
angering Spain effectively means everything from Argentina to Florida will declare war on you. And England was not in a good position to defend its Caribbean and North American colonies should the Spanish decide to encircle and annihilate them.
Yeah.
There's you can only hold on to Haiti after so many cannonballs.
And this is also in conjunction with the Navigation Act that already prevented trade. So it was another extension of this embargo against trading with the Scots.
Yeah.
So they were just kind of isolated on every side. Their new Spanish neighbors were attacking them. The local tribes wouldn't trade with them. And then the British were like, we cannot trade with you. Sorry.
Yeah, we don't acknowledge.
They were told to like completely ignore the Scots.
They would ignore all pleas for help. They would not trade with them. They were to turn away Scotsmen from Darien if Scotsmen from Darien came to their colony.
Wow.
Yeah. So like it wasn't just a don't trade with them. It was a completely ignore them whatsoever. No aid, no help, no letting them in any way.
Yeah, they were effectively to be treated as a hostile invading force.
Yeah. So it was even more brutal that this happened.
But at least, because then the natives actually ended up taking pity on the Scots, which was the indigenous group known as the Kuna, and they brought fish and fruit to eat, although they still refused to trade.
Yeah, they still did not. They still would not trade with them, although the Kuna, which by the way, this part of Panama that the Darien scheme took place in, this is southern Panama. It is such a dense region that to this day, on the border from Panama to Colombia, there is not a road because this area is so impassable. And thus, the Kuna people are the only people to ever settle there.
Wow.
Yep.
They are the only indigenous people to ever have settled there.
And they are still around too.
They are still there. They spoke about this during the 2014 Scottish referendum.
Yeah.
And
Kuna were pretty nice. We're pretty chill about it. They liked Scotland.
Yeah, I specifically like in the quote here, it says, in the time of our forefathers, white people came here, Scottish and Spanish people. We like the Scottish more than the Spanish, for the Spanish attacked us and drove us inland away from the coast, and the Scots did not. There were battles, and many ships were sunk. Yeah. Like, I just like we like them better than the Spanish.
Yep. Scotland earned a lot of brownie points with the indigenous peoples by virtue of not being Spain.
I think it should
not being genocidal assholes.
Yeah, I think it's important to highlight Spanish's foreign policy at the time.
Yeah. And then technically it's domestic policy since that's technically part of Spain. And then they got even more brownie points by virtue of the fact that the Spanish seemed to hate them even more than the Spanish seemed to hate every Native American they encountered. The Spanish seemed to take the Scottish existence personally.
Yeah, so
gotta love that. The enemy of my enemy.
And look at them. There's more helpless saps out here with wool.
And combs. Don't forget the combs.
These poor bastards are just looking for a home. Dear God.
You just see someone that just came so ill prepared to something. It's like when someone comes to like a Scantron test and all they have are pens. You know, you're like, oh wow.
Yeah, and then the pens give you like mercury poisoning and you die horribly in front of everyone.
Ooh, oh yeah, it's like a neon yellow pen that like has run out of ink, and you're like, you were just what did you think you were coming to do?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. And so this colony endured Spanish raiding, starvation, disease for about 7 months. At which point, a third of them were dead. It's about 400 people.
God, that's
just in the ground.
And the survivors weren't the best off.
They were starving, and they all had yellow fever.
And then after about 7 months, they're like, okay, maybe it's time
Yep.
to abandon the scheme. Maybe we walk away.
At this point, they decided to leave, and they broadcasted that over the instantaneous worldwide news network.
Called the Ocean.
Just kidding. Just kidding. Mail back then took about a year.
Yeah.
So guess who thought everything was going great?
Like the 6 more ships that left Leith in November 1699 with an additional 1,300 colonists?
Yep. Everyone not in the Caribbean thought this was going great.
Yeah. So the first settlers left, and the second wave came prepared to meet like a new colony functioning. They're like, all right, we're here to reinforce this great idea and this great place. And they came back to an abandoned colony, being like, what the fuck? Because they had no clue.
But
and then
wait,
a third
there's
wave
more.
came out too.
Yeah. And then a third wave was like, yeah, wait, what?
Yeah, they sent 16 ships to this colony. One comes back.
Yeah.
Do you think the old colonials saw the new ones coming through the ocean and are like, I don't know where they're heading, but those poor bastards.
Probably not. The ocean was pretty big. Yeah, but they only had 300 surviving colonists.
Wow. Which means that more than 2,000 were lost.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we're averaging about 250 people per ship at this point.
It was not the best.
And of course, the scheme nearly bankrupted the Scottish economy because we talked about half of their wealth going into it.
Yeah, so this leads back onto why Scotland had to kind of give up its independence to England.
But before we get into that,
Oh,
before we get into that, because this does break up the Scottish economy, does lead to that. There is one more thing I think we should talk about with the scheme before we get into that, and that is the big fight that was the killing blow, the death blow to the colony itself, because these people kept coming, and they probably would have still kept coming if it wasn't for the Battle of Tubacanti, where the Spanish basically wiped them out in a military victory.
Oof.
Yeah. So Tubacanti was this hill in the Darien region, and in the year 1600, the Spanish decided that they were going to occupy this hill, build a fort atop it, and use it to just mercilessly bludgeon the Scottish until they left.
That's one way to solve your Scots problem.
Yep. It was under the command of a man with a very long name, Don Miguel de Cardona, governor of Santa Maria.
Santa Maria.
Yeah.
Santa Maria.
And ironically, on February 15th, 1700, the last military victory of the nation of Scotland takes place with the first part of the Battle of Tubacanti.
I like how you specified the first part.
Okay.
Playing the second part didn't go very well.
Immediately afterwards, things go horribly wrong for them.
Oh God! And yeah, it led to the dissolution of the Scottish Parliament because economic repercussions.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And as every modern Scot loves, this eventually led to the Act of Union between England and Scotland in 1707.
Yep. This Act of Union, I guess we can get back to the details of Tubacanti later, if we have time.
Let's finish the details of...
Oh, yeah. Not to skip too far ahead.
Yeah, here's we're going to jump back. All right. So,
you were like, part 2, the disillusionment's like, no, part 2, trapped in the...
No. So, on February 15th, 1700, a man named Alexander Campo leads the Scottish settlers in a raid against about 1,600 Spanish soldiers that are encamped on this hill. He takes about 200 Scots to do this. And you might note the name Alexander Campo. Did we mention him earlier on the stream, or was that before the stream?
That was before.
We did.
Was it during stream? The Campbell's
Campbell's
McDonald's,
fried
yeah.
Yeah.
That was on stream, right?
Yeah,
I
but just
believe
give a
so.
brief
All right, so
overview again.
anyway, Alexander Campbell. So shortly before the Darien scheme goes off, a little ways before, the leader of a clan known as Clan MacDonald, not the restaurant, is slightly late due to poor roads and a couple other factors outside of human control in his swearing of an oath to King William III, King of Scotland and England. King William III decides to accept his oaths graciously, and then several weeks later have the Campbells sneak into their homes in the middle of the night as guests and murder them. So that you might recognize Campbell name from that earlier. I do believe he mentioned on screen. Same Campbells. Very good at this whole sneak up on you and murder you. He skips the pretending to be friend part here. Campbell was the leader of the second wave of settlers. Paterson, the founder of the company, was the first. Campbell was joined by a man named Captain Pedro, who was able to convince 40 indigenous Kuna to join them on the raid, because the Kuna don't like the Spanish either, and here's a chance to get them off your land. Both Campbell and Pedro are injured in this attack. Campbell survives and returns to Scotland. They do drive the Spanish to retreat, making this the last military victory of an independent Scotland. As they drive them off the hill, the Spanish flee into the jungle. They capture 5 of them. They capture like the personal chest of Don Miguel, the leader of the Spanish. So they basically got all his personal effects, which is a humiliating thing to take from someone. Yep. If you have the enemy, if you literally have the enemy general's personal things, you have lost horribly.
It just makes me think of a video game boss of like, here's a chest of all of my personal treasures. Yep. Defeat me and it's yours.
Yep. The injury of their leaders, Campbell and Pedro, very much undid the Spanish, or very much undid the Scottish for when the Spanish returned, under a man named Don Melchor de Guevara, who promptly drove the Scots into Fort St. Andrews, which, while it was well located to guard the bay in which New Edinburgh was built, it was not built with a source of fresh water inside of it. It was made as a fortress to deal with naval blockades and naval bombardment, not a fortress to serve as a point for last resort from a land invasion. So they just got bottled in there with no water and were forced into submission. Yeah. The Scots surrender the entire colony in March of 1700. And the last Scot leaves on April 12, 1700, marking the death of this of the whole Darien scheme. There is a fun note over here for Campbell that we also have. As I'm just sort of running through this, we can get back to Justin's active union that he wants to talk about.
Oh, sorry. I didn't even realize you were still segueing over to the battle.
There's one last note. So Campbell, on his return to Scotland, he founds one of the military companies that becomes what is now known as the Highland Regiment, or the Black Watch. In the year 1725, he founds one of these groups that is formed into what is now a modern British military unit. He's a founder.
Official commissioned military unit, or is it a paramilitary mercenary regiment?
It is. I do not believe it is a mercenary regiment. It's the Highland Regiments of the British Army. They are. I believe they are official. They are official military units of the British Army.
Yeah.
I believe in particular is the Black Watch. But there are 6 of these things that become divided or combined into various Highland regiments. The Black Watch in particular is that's their fancy name. They're officially the 3rd Battalion Royal Regiment of Scotland. They are an infantry battalion.
Interesting. That is very interesting.
Yeah, it's one of the Highland regiments. Another one of the early ones is the 42nd Foot Regiment, which was combined with the 73rd to form the Black Watch.
That's
These are official military units. I recall some of them being mentioned in some of the research that was conducted way back for our very first episode, the Christmas special on the Christmas truce. The Highland regiments are mentioned playing a soccer game with the Germans.
Oh yeah.
That's these people.
If you guys
these
would
people
like,
we're talking about right here.
If you guys would like, leave a comment and we'll force Colum to do a video talking about these regiments.
Yeah. Alexander Campbell, 25 years after he wins the first battle of Tubacanti, founds these regiments that then go on to play soccer with Germany in World War One.
Talk about leaving your mark on history, though.
Yeah. But that's the Battle of Tubacanti. It's pretty stunning upset. 240 people, most of whom are not really trained warriors. They're just whoever was at the settlement and could carry a gun versus 1,600 Spanish soldiers in a fortified position.
Goes to show you how tough the Scottish are.
They're outnumbered a solid 5-1 here. And they still take the day. Then the Spanish remember that they have numbers and come back.
Yeah, but I mean, like, when you think about it, they probably could have done really well had they understood like what the climate was going to be and they had been prepared for it.
Yeah.
And probably one of the reasons that they really weren't prepared for it was there wasn't a ton of information that they could have gathered about this. And so, they were kind of at a disadvantage in that way. But I think if they were prepared, I think they would have done a really good job.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Most of their information, unfortunately, is coming from other British colonies as to what the New World is like. So they're getting information on what things are like in New England and Newfoundland and South Carolina and maybe like Haiti. At most will tell you, hey, there are some places where it's hot.
Yeah. So, they're thinking like, the New World. And it's like, nah, the New World. Like, it's the
I personally believe that they expected, from virtue of experience, Darien to be like Nova Scotia. Cold, windswept, much like home.
Yeah.
It was
and
very
not
hot.
to mention, they were going through like the coldest time that they had ever been through. So they were already prepared with like heavy wools and stuff because that is what they needed to survive. Mm-hmm. And then they're coming to this place and it's gotta be such a crazy switch. Like, I know if I go like on a plane to Florida in the middle of winter, it's like, it kind of hits you, the change in temperature. And I can only imagine what that's like coming from a ship and never having experienced that before in such a drastic way.
Yeah, you thought you were landing in Alaska and you wound up in Florida is basically what happened.
Yeah.
For those of us, for our American viewers who are not good at geography.
Yeah.
Alaska, Florida.
But it was it was a shock to the system, and then kind of jumping us back to where we were before. Like,
we were gonna go,
it was very much a shock to the system, and the failure had long-term effects. Like I said, it led to the dissolution of the Scottish Parliament, and it ended up leading to an act between England and Scotland in 1707, And this was a unification between the two parliaments into the Parliament of the United Kingdom. So this is where we see the creation of the UK. Where
actually, this is not where we see. This is where we see the creation of Great Britain.
Yes.
Sorry,
Yeah, the
I
United
misspoke.
Kingdom comes when Great Britain does the same trick to Ireland, of which they now only retain about a quarter.
Yeah,
the Protestant quarter, not the Catholic.
The Ulster quarter, where they throw you off the stage if you're Liam Neeson and you claim to be Irish and from there.
But yeah, so this was the creation of Great Britain, and as a part of the system, Scotland kept legal and religious systems, but then they lost the right to their own coinage, to taxation, to sovereignty, to trade, and to their parliament. So, I mean, it's quite a significant loss. You basically lose your independence and become a dependent state.
Yep.
Just with being able to make your own rules to an extent.
But there were some advantages to this. Otherwise, they would not have done it.
Yep. Those advantages being all the rich people who had invested in the Darien Scheme and lost a lot of money, they got paid back.
Oh, thank God.
With the price of Scotland. Investors. They got handed a sum of money very quietly and were, there you go. Thanks for your time.
One of the other advantages is that now, since they were a part of England, the Great Britain, they were now able to trade with English ships.
Yep.
So that whole trade thing that they wanted to access, they finally did get access to it, just with losing a lot of things. But it was something that was able to kind of bounce Scotland back, so they weren't in the same situation that they were in beforehand.
I do think that's...
Additionally, it no longer allowed England to ignore and abuse Scotland in the same manner it had, as England could no longer pretend Scotland was a foreign nation who just happened to share the same head of state, who just happened to be in England at all times, and who just happened to use it as a piggy bank for English affairs.
Yeah, they actually had
English affairs.
Yeah.
I do think it's important, though, like, because now we're talking about the formation of Great Britain. I think we can jump to modern times and just kind of briefly talk about the modern idea of Scottish secession while we're just on the topic.
Well, before we jump to Scottish secession, there's one last thing in modern times about the colony. So the area in which the colony was established is to this day still called Caledonia Bay in its memory. And in 1979, archaeologists discovered traces of the settlement. They found New Edinburgh and Fort St. Andrew.
So that's cool. You can see evidence of the colony.
It. Yeah, they found what was left of it. It's pretty grim.
At least it's not a lost colony like Roanoke.
We don't
sure.
deal with Roanoke anymore.
We'll look on the bright sides, I guess.
I don't want conspiracy theorists in the chat, please.
But then coming back to the modern ages, as recently as 2014, Scotland voted to actually regain their independence amongst a larger push during this time of Brexit and Britain leaving the European Union. And Scotland has very Eurocentric views, at least in terms of their fiscal policies and their trade agreements, and they didn't want to lose out on that. So they were talking about seceding from the United Kingdom to just become their own independent state again.
Yep. Yeah, they did decide to stay with England and the rest of the United Kingdom by a margin of 55.3 to 44.7. So about a 5% in favor. That was the difference between staying and leaving.
And you have to remember that England did like intense campaigning to keep Scotland a part of the UK, because that is like such a big thing. And so a lot of people argued, hey, Scotland's not going to automatically become a member of the EU. You should stay so that you are still in the EU. And then Brexit happened.
Yep.
So, yay.
Yeah,
well, it's interesting.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
Yeah, so they're
too,
talking about doing another referendum.
Yep.
And that's exactly it, because after the first referendum, it wasn't even the first referendum.
The 2014 referendum.
The
It's called the
2014
referendum. Use the dates, because there's going to be about 1 million of these. It's like Irish revolts. Just use the year.
But after the 2014 referendum, and then eventually Brexit in 2016, 2017, it ended up leading to a lot of change in sentiment amongst the Scottish population, to where now modern polls are predicting that close to 70% could actually be in favor of Scottish independence.
Yeah, and that 5% difference, that's 400,000 votes. In the United States, politicians call for multiple recounts on a margin that small.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, like, there's still that sentiment, there's still that distaste and that distrust, and even in a lot of modern movies and cultures, you see a lot of calls of Scottish independence, Scottish freedom. I mean, as awful of a take as it is, Braveheart really highlighted that, and really, I know, Colum, you're shaking your head, but like,
it's like you're calling it, recent movies like Braveheart, 1999.
Okay, yeah, 23 years.
I don't have the exact date for Braveheart, but I'm just making fun of the fact that it's not a new
95.
movie.
But I mean, it's within the past 30 years.
Just go with Outlaw King. Go with 2018. Outlaw King, Robert the Bruce, right there.
Thank you.
More realism, and much more recent.
Yeah.
There you go.
You're the media junkie amongst us, so
no, that's
you had a reference.
That's her job.
I just don't watch a ton of like my media when you think of Scotland is, and I was like, oh yeah, the Highlander series, which is not at all accurate or anything. It's got time travel in it.
I'm gonna start adding. I'm gonna start adding all the Scottish films to the list of things we need to watch off set.
I just went with the most recognizable one that most people would know. Let's
not reference Mel Gibson.
That's fair. Yeah, Mel Gibson is not a good person.
Braveheart's not liked, I think, by Scotland either. So,
but I think
none of them are made by Scotland. But the sentiment of most films that take place in Scotland or about Scottish history are about Scotland trying to free itself from an abusive and oppressive relationship with the English. Yeah. And usually it's a heroic and tragic death for the person involved.
Yeah.
I mean, Outlaw King bucks this trend because Robert the Bruce actually won.
Yeah.
And that's why it's all the way until James VI that you get a merger of the crowns in 1603. That's why there's a couple hundred years of Scotland actually being a nation.
Yeah.
And not just a subject people of the English.
Yeah. And hopefully the referendum will come soon, though they are, because of the Russian invasion of Ukraine. They're thinking about pushing it back because, they think that it wouldn't particularly be the best time to have a referendum and try to join the EU. So that's the whole reason Russia invaded things.
Better not divide your forces when there is a madman attempting to start World War III.
Yeah. So they're thinking about pushing it back, but they are still the nation is incredibly pushing for this to happen. And so once that gets settled, or they're in a place where they're like, I think we can still do this and it'd be okay. I think they're going to have that referendum, and I think they're going to win. And good for them. I like the Tower of London. Cool architecture, but England, not the best thing to be associated, and especially with Brexit, because the whole reason they stayed was for the EU.
Yep. And then there'll only be two more left. Northern Ireland and Wales. And the Welsh.
Need to bring back the Republic of Ireland.
Listen.
Well, Ireland is such a heavy topic.
Let's not get into that. Let's not get into that. All right. You can get thrown out of town by the mayor of Belfast for claiming to be from Northern Ireland and being Irish, as they did to Liam Neeson in his acceptance speech for a Lifetime Achievement Award.
I was about to say, I thought Liam Neeson was Irish.
He is Irish, and in the acceptance speech from the city of Belfast for his Lifetime Achievement Award, he holds the award and he says, when I was a child, I never dreamed that a young Irish boy, and the mayor shoves him aside, rips the trophy out of his hand, and screams, "You're from, you're from here. You're from Ulster. You're British." And has him thrown off stage.
On that wonderful.
So this is the English.
There,
we are strangely in favor of people separating from England.
I think this is a good point, though, for us to bookmark it and to end this episode. We could go on anti-English tangents all day long.
We are archaeologists.
Love the accent, though. Gotta say that. Not to hate on our English viewers.
We love you, England, but your history is a bit dodgy. And I think that's a pretty good way to sum it up.
Yeah. Politics a bit dodgy, too. I mean, they just kicked a politician out of parliament for some shady stuff.
But if you guys enjoyed listening to this tangential episode about the Great Scottish Darien Colony, be sure to leave a like down below and leave a comment letting us know what your favorite part of the video is, or if you have any suggestions of any future content. Just let us know, and be sure to follow us on all of our social medias listed down below or in the show notes. Mm-hmm. And like I said, we'll have the agriculture episode up on Wednesday. And then, Colum, what would be your HH reads for this week?
Yes, this has been the Darien Scheme, or how Scotland lost its independence. Coming up this next couple weeks for HH reads. We just had, on the Friday before this, we just had Edgar Allan Poe's The Raven drop, so go check that out as well. And the Friday of this video, we will be having War of the Worlds by H.G. Wells read, and then Anna Karenina, the first novel by Leo Tolstoy of Russia.
Yes.
And in 2 weeks, our next podcast topic is going to be talking about Beringia, the Bering Land Bridge, which is one of my favorite topics, and going to hear a lot of archaeology. So be sure to stay tuned for that. We're finally getting into the dirt and into the weeds.
Yep. Yeah. Beringia is the land bridge between what is now Russian Siberia and American Alaska. Hence Leo Tolstoy.
Yes.
All righty.
On the reads.
Thank you for watching, and we'll catch you all in the next episode.